but I felt it nonetheless. I booked it home and never mentioned it to anyone. I never went back to Brian 2's house. By the next year, Brian too had discovered other hobbies. The rest of us stuck together until college, then drifted apart. I grew up in a small beach resort town. It was remarkable for two things: a large collection of Victorian era mansions and a tiny year-round population. When the tourists left at the end of the summer, it became a ghost town. Most of the workers and business owners would go somewhere else until early spring. If you stayed, it was because you didn't have options. My family wasn't as well-to-do, so we'd close up most of the hotel and retreat to a few rooms, conserving heat and power until next season. In 1982, our town was barely holding on. In the summer, we pretty much got overflow from the surrounding beach towns with their newer, better appointed hotels, fancier restaurants, and nicer beaches. There was a national recession, so there weren't as many tourists. Some of those fancy mansions were abandoned or burned down for insurance. At the end of the season, I had a small group of friends in junior high. We were into role-playing games, sci-fi, and fantasy. Teofilo and I were the only members of the group not named Brian or Matt, two of each. We'd play D&D when we could, until we got kicked out of that house. When weather permitted, we'd go to the salt marshes or a closed-down industrial site and skirmish with handmade wooden melee weapons. One December evening, we were packing up to leave Brian 2's house when Steve came in the room. Steve was Brian 2's older brother. At the time, we thought he was cool. He had quit school, had a job on a fishing boat, and a car. He also had a real sword, which he claimed was a war trophy from his grandfather. Steve suggested that we should go with him to explore the closed-up Moose Lodge, a mansion about a mile from their house. All of us had been on the grounds of the property, since there were paths that led to the salt marshes behind the building. Steve seemed really insistent that we should go visit it that Sunday. A few of us agreed. Steve told us a few times that we should come in from the salt marsh side, so that nobody would see us. Sunday came around, and it turned out that everybody had something else to do. I was careful to approach the Moose Lodge from the back. To maintain stealth, I hid in some bushes to scope out the situation. Behind the building was an open backyard, big enough to park a few cars. There was one, a red Mercedes diesel sedan with 2 occupants. Steve was in the passenger seat, and an older man, wearing a cap, was in the driver's seat. I remember walking out of the bushes. Steve got out of the car and greeted me, putting his finger to his lips to tell me I should be quiet. Steve was very animated, telling me how neat the basement was and how great it would be to play games. I was peering down into the basement when I heard the man get out of the car and walk up behind me without slowing. I remember that sound, the look in the man's eyes, and the sound of Steve chattering. I felt a wave of fear hit me and I ran. I didn't know what I was afraid of, but I felt it nonetheless. I booked it home and never mentioned it to anyone. I never went back to Brian 2's house. By the next year, Brian too had discovered other hobbies. The rest of us stuck together until college, then drifted apart. I have seen the look in that man's eyes again. In law school, I interned with criminal defense lawyers, and some of those cases were for men accused of child molestation. A few of them had that same expression for a fleeting moment, but I saw it just the same.